Welcome to the PI Planning Cooking Show. This episode, we're going to talk about team performance metrics.
Welcome to the PI Planning Cooking Show with Shane Harrison.
If your iteration planning was any good, if your PI planning was any good, you want to know, right? And you can use those things to see the future. You can use those things to predict where and when you're going to have problems and where you're going. Hopefully, it'll predict success. So there are a couple of things that we need to collect. We need to have our PI plan, of course, iteration by iteration, all of the forecast stories that we have. And we also need to have the iteration plans. So each iteration you'll build a plan. And then we need the iteration actuals. So what you're going to have a look at is where are we in our PI versus where we thought we'd be. And you would look at numbers like story points and stories. We're not looking to match, we're looking to approximate. Remember, we're going against forecasts, we're not going against actuals. And then we're comparing those with the actuals. And we're going to look at things like plan versus actual in terms of velocity. So are the teams trending at the velocity that we expected them to do? Are they burning through the stories at approximately the rate we expected in terms of story points and in terms of actual stories? We'll also look at things like how much defects are we fixing? Are we investing the amount of time that we expected in this particular iteration? Are we up or down? It's the same. We would look at the support and we'd also look at unplanned activity. So I just want to take a break on unplanned activity for a moment. Unplanned activity is any activity that took place that wasn't planned before the iteration started. So we're not talking about before the PI started, we're talking about when the iteration started. Because the iteration is actually the only real plan that you have. It's the only time the team sits down and looks in detail at a particular slice of time. Everything else is a forecast. So we'd look at our unplanned activity, and that's key. Because if we're seeing a lot of unplanned activity, we can start to go and look around the world and go, look, hey, what's causing this? You know, is the RTE doing a lot of unplanned activity? Is the product manager? Are we getting interference from outside the organization? So that's really good to track. One thing I wouldn't track there, though, and I've seen this happen a few times, is unplanned absences. If you want to track unplanned absences, fine. Track those, but track that separately from your unplanned activity. Because unplanned activity, what you're looking for is extra work that's sneaking in the sides into your teams and sucking time out. Now you've worked out what you're tracking. Let's go back to what I talked about earlier when I was talking about predicting the future. So what we're looking for, and when we're looking at what the teams are doing, we're trying to prevent a snowplow, or we're trying to prevent an unintended deviation from our forecast in terms of features, whether they're business features or enabler features. We want to sort of either predict or prevent a variation in that space. So, for example, you should be able to look across your PI and you'll be able to see what sort of investment in terms of story points I am forecasting in order to achieve this particular feature. So you'll be able to look in your metrics and say, hey, I'm up on my forecast on that feature. Does that mean that I'm not going to be able to finish another feature? Am I sucking that capacity away? Because let's not forget, there is a fixed amount of capacity in your PI. So we want to use these metrics to look at how is that capacity being consumed. If it's been sucked up in defects, a feature or enabler is going to have to be either delayed or split or go. And the sooner you know that, the better. So you're using this to predict the future, because if you're, for example, halfway through the PI, by the time you're halfway through the PI, and to be honest, a lot of the time you hit the second iteration, you can see which features are at risk and which ones not. Which ones are sucking up more capacity than was expected, which ones are sucking up less, and you're able to see, okay, this one I'm going to have to push off. The sooner you have the conversation with the impacted business person, if it's a business feature, or impacted architect, if it's an architectural runway, you can actually have a look at the wider impact. You can have a look at the wider impact on your overall roadmap. You can see, okay, actually this enabler is at risk, but if I don't get this enabler done, I can't move on to these business features. And the last time you want to have that conversation is as you hit the very end of the PI, because you don't have much room to flex then. So as soon as you can start predicting the future and see what things are at risk, what things are safe, hopefully everything's safe, of course, but you can have those proper conversations at the right time. So you're always looking at what is my forecast versus my actuals. So just going back to the beginning there, so what's coming out of my PI planning, what is my plan versus actual, so what's coming out of my iteration plan, and what are, of course, the actuals, which is happening at the end of the iteration. If you're comparing all of those metrics, you're going to be in a good place to monitor, manage, and maintain the momentum and direction of your art. So that's the end of this episode of the PI Planning Cooking Show. If you like it, subscribe to the Ren Touch channel and click on the little bell, because that'll let you know when our next episode comes. And I look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a good day, and goodbye from the PI Planning Cooking Show.
That's the PI Planning Cooking Show with Shane Harrison.